Okay, class. Well, here we are, almost at the end. And this is the lecture for chapter 55, which is about nutrition and health. You know that I like that subject a lot. So I actually wanted to do a little bit of a PowerPoint, and that way we're going to go with the book. Okay, so if you have the book, take out the book also. And also you can look at the video. I'm going to be showing the PowerPoint slides, but also I'm going to attach it to Alma so you guys can keep it with you in case you need to study, in case you need a little bit more in depth. So just so you can have it, okay? So let's go with nutrition and health. So here we go. All right, so again is chapter 55. First of all, we have the key terms. Remember, it's always a good idea to go over them, review them, know what they mean, because if they're there, that means you're going to use them at some point, most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time. So why is nutrition important? Well, any nutrients that we get from food, they serve three purposes. Right now I'm on page 1127, and the purposes are to provide energy, to build, repair, and maintain body tissues, and to regulate body processes. I'm not going to go into the metabolism because we've talked about that already, and also about calories. I think you're a little bit more familiar with what a calorie is. It's the way that energy is measured, how much energy that food can give you. So if we go into the next page, well, we're going to talk about the nutrients, right? So what are the nutrients? Which are the nutrients that we're going to need? Well, we need proteins, we need carbohydrates, we need fiber, lipids, vitamins, minerals, and of course we need water. Water is very, very important. Okay, so water is very important. That's why I always carry it around. All right, so let's go into each one of them because each one, like I said, is important anyway. So first, the proteins. What are proteins good for? Well, they help build and repair the cells. Where do we see this? Well, you need to repair cells all the time because cells are constantly regenerating. They're constantly dying, and others are new. So you want to keep the new cells that come out healthy. So in order for that to happen, well, you need a good protein intake so you can build it and repair the cells that need repair. This also applies a lot to, like, let's say in older people, like nursing homes and everything. It's very, very important for them to also have protein. Sometimes they have to have like supplemental protein because let's say they have an ulcer, or they have any disease, any chronic disease that gave them any wound or something. So they need healing, but because their organism doesn't work the same, then they are going to need extra protein. All right, so that's why it's very important. So now we have that it helps maintain the water balance also. It assists with the antibody production and also disease resistance, which means, you know, like to keep healthy, for you not to get sick all the time, not to get sick easily. So it helps build that immune system. It helps maintain body heat, and also from everything that you take in your diet, 10 to 35% of that diet should be protein. Okay, so we think about 2,000 calorie diet. If we have 2,000, well, 10 to 35% of those 2,000 calories should be proteins. All right, so you do the math. Proteins are also they're made of amino acids, and the amino acids are produced not by us but by plants and animals. Okay, so that's why we have to take them. That's why we have to eat either plants or animals that contain protein, because we don't make it ourselves. Now I put here as a myth that people need animal products for protein. If you heard, a lot of people are just going to say that they need the meat for protein. If they're not having meat, or they attack a lot vegetarian people because they say that, you know, where are they getting their protein if they're not getting it from meat, that they're going to get sick and all this stuff. Well, like I said, that's a myth. That's false. You can get a lot of protein from plant sources. Now think about this. How do animals get their protein? The animals get their protein through plants, because you see, like, let's say a gorilla, they don't eat meat. They eat mostly plants. A giraffe eats plants. Elephants, they eat plants. They don't eat meat. So how are they building their system? How do they get their protein? By eating plants. They don't need meat. So some kinds of food or nutrients that are rich on protein, that are not necessarily meat. It could be like grains, and that's why I put it kind of over here. Like all these grains, all that, they're rich in protein. So like, let's say beans, lentils, chickpeas, all that kind of stuff, it's rich in protein. So you don't really need meat. However, if you're going to choose meat, then make sure that you choose something that is healthier, and that will be, you know, like fish, or if it's chicken, it's healthier. If you eat the breast of the chicken, so all that you have to kind of have in consideration, because not all animal protein is going to be good for you. Okay, and we'll get into that later. Now we also have carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, they really constitute 2/3 of the person's energy. So carbohydrates are very important for that production of energy. So they should be between 45 to 65% of your diet. So again, do the math. If you eat a 2,000 calorie diet, well, 45 to 65% of that diet should be carbohydrates. Now, what kind of carbohydrates is another thing, but we'll take a look at that in a second. Carbs are converted into sugars when you need it immediately. Okay, so let's say you're going to go into a marathon. You're going to exercise. You're going to do something that requires energy. So you eat something that is rich in carbohydrates, and the first thing that's going to go from your body are those carbohydrates, the ones you ate, because they are transformed into energy, immediate energy. Now, let's say you eat it, but you don't do anything, just laying down, you're not doing a lot to convert it, they will be stored as fat. So that's when you get fat. Remember, when you actually exceed the amount of intake of more, you are eating more calories than what you're burning, that's when you start storing fat, and next thing you know, you're overweight. Okay, now we have also simple and complex carbohydrates. So the simple ones are the sugars, The healthy ones will be like fruits, right? But the unhealthy ones, that's why I put this picture over here, it's like, you know, those snacks, the donuts, the pretzels, the crackers, all that kind of stuff. All right, all those are also simple carbohydrates, which those are no, not good for you. And then we have the complex carbohydrates, but those are come mostly like from, like, let's say potatoes, let's say yuca, all that kind of, those are like the complex starches, or rice. And we need it, but also in moderate amounts. Remember, you always have to think about how much you're taking in, and then think about how much calories you're spending in a day. Okay, here we have like the fruits, which are also simple carbohydrates, but they're good. So some vegetables and fruits are simple, but they're healthy. But then you have simple also that are not that healthy, which are these over here. So we want to avoid those as much as we can, if we actually can do it. All right. Another one, it's fiber. Well, this one is a little bit of a separate category, because it is also a type of carbohydrate, but we put it separately because it's very important to have fiber in your diet. The fiber is a type of complex carbohydrate. Why is it important? Because it helps your digestive functions. Okay, so your digestive system benefits from fiber. What good does it do? Well, it can treat and prevent constipation, hemorrhoids, this IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, gallstone formation, so gallstones, all that. It can control diabetes, reduction in some types of cancers and other diseases. So fiber it's good. If you don't have enough fiber, then it can lead to increased risk of colon cancer, of high cholesterol and high glucose levels. So you want to avoid that. However, know that too much, there's always a balance for everything. So too much fiber can give you constipation or diarrhea or GI disorders. So not too much and not too little. The recommended daily intake is 14 grams per every 1,000 calories. All right. So those you actually weigh. There are like little weighs that weigh grams, and then these are your complex ones. Okay, so try to look for things that are good and that are healthy. Okay, so they can make, because what it does, it makes like bulk in your intestines, so it cleans out your intestines, so it's good for you. All right, so now we have lipids. Lipids is the same thing as fats. So fats, believe it or not, they're good for you, and it's some things that you actually need. There are things that you do not need. There are some types of fats that are no, even though it might taste good, but they're not very healthy. So the lipids are any type of dietary fat. They're concentrated source of energy, and they can be stored in large amounts, of course. Fat, they're going to be stored in large amounts. However, remember that I was telling you about that immediate release of energy when you have carbohydrates? Well, this one is like once that immediate release, and then you need to get more energy, then it actually goes into the fat. That's why exercising for like over 15 minutes is going to start burning fat. Okay? And that's why they actually advise if you want to lose weight, to do at least 30 minutes, because then your first 15 minutes, what you're releasing is the carbohydrate, that energy that you have from your carbohydrates. However, if you keep on going, then those other extra 15 minutes are actually going into that storage, which is the fat, and it's going to be converted into energy, and you're going to lose it. So that's good. What else is the fat good for? Well, for transportation of fat soluble vitamins, and we'll go into vitamins in a little bit. Also for insulation and protection of our organs. So it makes like a little coverage of our organs. So it's actually a good thing. You cannot not have fat in your system. You need some type of fat. So it has to be healthy kind, and again, we'll go over that. Also, it is digested slower than everything else. It stays in your system a little bit more. We have two types, and one is called saturated fat, and then we have unsaturated fat. So the saturated fat is the one that it becomes solid at room temperature. So think about like a piece of bacon, right? Let's say you fried a bacon in a pan, and then you didn't eat it, you left it there, or you left leftovers there for a while. When you look at the pan again, you're going to see a hard, like thick substance, and that's because that's saturated fat. That fat that, you know, that when you were frying, it was liquid, it now turned like really solid. So that's what saturated is. So just think about what it can do to your arteries. That's why it's not very recommended to have saturated fats. Or if you do, just make sure that it's very, very restricted amount, not too much of it. Because like I said, it's a kind of fat that can actually destroy your heart, your arteries, your body. All right. Now you also have unsaturated ones, and the unsaturated are the ones that are liquid in room temperature. So those are your like vegetable oil, like corn oil. It's like all those kind of oils that they stay liquid. So when you see like, or canola oil, when you see like somebody cooking and they use like that liquid oil, masola or whatever, whichever one you use, you see that it remains liquid. That's because that's unsaturated fat. Okay, it doesn't mean like it's the best, but it is much better than the saturated ones. Okay, now trans fats here, they are the ones that something else is added to the whole process, and it's called hydrogenation. This is not good. These are not good, and if you can avoid it all the way, then avoid it. And what is that one? Well, that's the one like that is used in when you see something, like if you see cookies, if you see donuts, if you see crackers, if you see things like that, and it says trans fat, look always at the label. If it says something in trans fats, that means it went through that hydrogenation process, and that's not good for your body. So if you can actually avoid it all the way to zero, it's way better. So that's why also you see a lot of advertisement that it says zero trans fats. Why? Because it has been studied already, and it has been the conclusion of it all is that it's not good for you. So try to stay away from that. Now we're gonna go into vitamins. So Why do you need vitamins? Well, for your normal body growth, maintenance, and for resistance to infections. Vitamins, you can get them all if you have like a good diet that includes everything that you need. You don't need to take vitamins. However, if you know that you're not eating well for X reason, I don't know, whatever reason it is that you're not eating everything that you need to, then there you can actually take, a multivitamin or something. But always make sure that, your doctor's okay with that and they recommend it before you just kind of start taking vitamins like crazy. We have two types of vitamins, and one is water soluble. That means you actually get it processed and you pee it out. So that one, once you have like too much of it, usually what the body does is you just kind of just pee it out, and because it's water soluble. All right, and the example of that is vitamin C and vitamin B. You know how they say sometimes when you're sick, like, oh, okay, yeah, take loads of vitamin C. Well, not loads, you shouldn't take of anything, but you do take like a bigger amount. However, the body will get rid of it, and if you're taking more than what it needs, okay? So it's not that toxic. The one that is very toxic is the fat soluble. Remember, everything that's fat stays in your body longer. So fat soluble vitamins are vitamin A, vitamin D, E, and K. That means it needs the fat to actually get absorbed into your system, and just because of that, it's going to stay longer in your system. So if you take like mega amounts of any of these, then you can actually get them into toxic levels. So you don't, of course, you don't want any of that. Now we have minerals. Minerals, what are minerals? Well, they're inorganic. That means not organic. Anything that's organic comes from plants, from animals. Inorganic it's the minerals. So inorganic substances that the body needs. Your body needs a bunch of inorganic substances. And when you go to the doctor, sometimes they want to see those levels, how those levels are, okay? Because a lack of it can affect your health big way. Or if you have too much of it, remember, it's always a balance. So the major ones, the ones that your body needs the most, will be the calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Almost all of these play a big part in your heart. So that's why they're so important. They do a lot more things than that, but if we want to talk about major needs, well, think about your heart. And then trace. So the trace ones is the ones that you need a little bit. I mean, you need it, of course, but you don't need it that much as you're going to need the calcium, magnesium, or phosphorus. And some of the trace ones would be iron, iodine, zinc, and others. Now, if you've seen salt, the regular table salt, some of it says iodine added. So just with that, you already have the recommended dose of iodine. Okay, iron, a lot of people are deficient in iron and they need extra, so they need pills that are iron, just because they're anemic, or they have that kind of deficiency. So some people are going to have to take supplemental medications or supplemental vitamins, supplemental minerals, just to keep up with their body. All right. Now, My Plate Guidelines. My Plate Guidelines, this is what the government suggests how your plate should look like. Okay, so what is the most important thing? Well, one of the most important things is that you need to balance your calories. Don't take all your calories just in fruits, or don't take all the calories that you need just in grains. No, balance it out. There are foods that you need to increase. Well, like you see here, you need to increase your veggies, right? But there are foods that you need to reduce. Like you see here, like dairy, you don't need too much of that. Okay, remember, dairy also is like milk or butter, all those kinds of fats that your body really doesn't need that much of it. So everything in balance, that's kind of like the key of the whole thing. All right, now we're going to go into patients with specific needs. Not everybody needs the same thing. We're all different, and just because we're different, that's why we have to treat everyone differently when it comes to nutrition. That's why it's good for them to go to the doctor. That's why it's good to get a general exam and to see if they're deficient in this, if they have any illnesses, or if they have any needs, special needs that they need to take care of. So one of them is going to be a patient with allergies. The most common allergies are shellfish, milk, eggs, nuts, soy, wheat, fish, and peanuts. Those are very, very common. And what happens usually, if it's not like a bad allergy, but it's an allergy, then they're going to have their skin, they're going to have a rash, they're going to have itching and all that. So, well, what are we going to do? We're going to try to avoid those kinds of foods. Some people don't know if they're allergic to a certain food or not, but there are tests that will tell them. There are blood tests and there are skin tests also that could tell the person what they're allergic to specifically. But usually the person will know, because it's like every time I have eggs, I get like really itchy all over. That's something that they might say, so you know they're allergic to eggs, and maybe they take them out of the diet, and problem solved. All right. Then we have the patients with anemia, and that's what we were talking about with iron deficiency. So patients that have anemia, most of the patients with anemia, there's several different types of anemia. However, this one in particular, we're talking about food, nutrition. So this is an iron deficiency one. So when that becomes way, way, way too low, that not even medication or the supplements that they're taking is enough, then they have to actually get blood transfusions in the hospital. Okay, so to give you an idea, normal, or what is considered normal, iron or hemoglobin will be between maybe 12 and 16 for a woman. It's a little higher for a man, between 14 and 18. So anything below that is going to make that person anemic. In the hospital, if a person has like 7 or usually less than 7, they immediately get blood transfusion, okay? Because they have to replace that blood. They're very, very low, and if it keeps on getting lower, well, they can die. So yeah, it's very, very important for them. Now, if they, let's say they know they're anemic, they know that they suffer from anemia, that they always have their hemoglobin low, they're not just supplements, but there are a lot of foods that are that have iron, and those are like liver. I know a lot of people don't like liver, but hey, that one is like, it has a lot of iron. egg yolks, dark green vegetables, beans, some dried fruits, and fortified breads and cereals. So there are some foods that you're going to see in the supermarket, and then it says added iron or fortified with iron. That also applies to calcium. If you see like some orange juices say fortified with calcium or calcium rich or something like that. Okay, on their own they don't have it, but and when the processing, when they're making it, they add to it, and that could also help the person. Now we have patient with cancer. If a patient has cancer, you know that they're going to, their appetite is not going to be as good, so they're going to need a lot of support. They're also going to need foods that appeal to them, even if it's little amounts. They might need supplemental foods. So you have to also have all that in mind. Antioxidants are very good for people with cancer because that can help them regenerate cells and help them with the recovery. Then we have patients with diabetes. Now, you know, patients with diabetes, they're going to need a certain kind of diet. And if you go on to page 1141, there's actually a big table there. It goes from 1141 to 1142 actually, and it shows the diabetic food exchange table. So those are kind of like the foods that people with diabetes should have. And it's good for you to know because you want to educate your patient or your family member, anybody that is struggling with diabetes. So to keep them healthy, they need a strict diet, a good diet, something that they can follow throughout, that is not just for some time, but it's a forever thing. And with that, include physical activity as well. We have here patients with heart disease. Remember what we were talking about, the arteries and all that it clogs up? Well, this is a healthy artery right here. And then if the person starts eating, or they eat a lot of fats, and those fats start getting stored, and they're the wrong kind of fats also, then they're going to start accumulating in those arteries. So here it says initial fatty deposit. So you see it's starting right here, then it becomes all that, which is like plaque all over it, and then it can actually block the whole artery. So what happens if it blocks the whole artery? Well, the person easily can have a myocardial infarction or heart attack. Okay, so this is very important, and this is why people should eat healthier and exercise and all this. Unfortunately, there are some people that just because of their genetics, they will create this anyway. So, well, we are hoping anyway that educating everybody throughout their lives and telling them what is good and what is bad, it helps at least a good percentage. Okay. Now we have hypertension, and hypertension is very much connected with heart disease. So hypertension diet, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to switch the bad ones for good ones, right? And we know what is bad, what is good. I don't think we have to go like deep into, okay, a burger is bad. You already know it is. Avoid trans fats, what we were talking about earlier. Okay, sugars, caffeine, alcohol, anything that is like super processed and everything, all those things are bad for you. And we're going to increase food that is rich in potassium, magnesium, vitamins, all this. Another one that is very, very important is to try to cut back in salt. Large amount of salt also seems to higher blood pressure. So if somebody already has hypertension and they are adding salt, then it's bad. And remember, all this processed food, all these things have a lot of sodium in it. You're supposed to take, I think it's 2,300 grams per day, and people usually take way more than that in one burger, in just one meal. So it's good, like I said, to know all this so you can educate. Now, patients with lactose sensitivity, so all those that are lactose intolerant, well, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about here cheese, anything that is made with, that has high lactose. So we're talking about milk, regular milk. We're not talking about soy milk or rice milk or all those, because those, even though they're called milk, they're not really like milk from an animal, so they're not going to have lactose. But these are cheese, ice cream, so all that. And what happens to the person when they take that and they're lactose intolerant? Well, they start getting bloated, and with that bloating comes a pain, and with that comes also that rumbling that doesn't stop with the stomach. And after that, many of them just have to run to the bathroom. So what do they need to do? Well, avoid lactose rich foods. There are also medications that they sell for people that really, let's say, want to have that ice cream but don't want all this to happen, and they take like a little pill that is for lactose intolerant people, and it actually helps a lot with the symptoms. But again, you don't want to depend on just pills and pills and pills. You want to actually change your behavior, change your diet. All right, now we have overweight patients, and overweight, it's really about understanding why is the overweight thing happening. Why are there overweight issues? If it's a cultural thing, if it's a family thing, if it's anxiety, what is exactly what's causing it, okay? So it's important to first know what is going on in their lives, to know how to motivate them, how to educate them, and how to guide them into losing the weight and being healthier. Now, you don't want to tell them, you need to lose weight so you can look good. What you need to tell them is you need to lose weight so you can be healthy. Why? Because overweight patients usually develop chronic illnesses, which are what we were talking about earlier, diabetes, heart disease, even cancer. So a lot of these things. And actually, coronavirus, it hits harder to people that are overweight. So that is the reason, the number one reason that people need to keep their weight in a healthy number, and especially because of activity. Now, there are people that could be really skinny and at the same time not be very healthy, because their metabolism is just fast, but it doesn't mean that they can eat whatever they want. What it means is like, okay, that is going to actually cost you in the long run, and then you're going to be faced with also all these diseases. So the point of it is to be healthy. All right. Then we have also pediatric patients. They're the picky eaters, really. It's very difficult to have them eat healthy. They have different stages in their life. Well, babies, of course, they're going to have mommy's milk, hopefully until they're at least 6 months. Then they're going to start introducing like solid foods, little by little, one at a time, just to make sure they're not allergic to anything. They're not going to have regular milk. They'll have formula until they're 1 year old, and then after that they can have whatever kind of food, however, food that is also safe for them. And what I'm talking about is like if it's a toddler, if it's a 2-year-old, and you give like big chunks of meat or something like that, and they can actually choke with that really easy. So also what you want to do is to find out what they really like. They're going to have periods of time that they only want one thing, and like they love macaroni and cheese, and they're just going to want macaroni and cheese, and they're just going to eat macaroni and cheese. So just think about it. It's just a phase that they go through, but they get over it, and then they start like tasting other things, and they start wanting other things. But don't be too hard on them, and just make it appealing, make it fun, so they can try new things and they can actually start healthy from the time they're little. Okay. Now we have pregnant and lactating patients. Well, the needs of a person that is pregnant, a lady that is pregnant, they're going to be much higher, of course. And if you read in page 1143, it tells you a little bit about how much to increase. Now, you don't just increase food just to get fat and stuff. No, you increase food because you're already also not just feeding yourself, you're feeding a baby, and you want that baby to be healthy. That baby's gonna get what they need no matter what. So you don't want a lack of anything because the baby's sucking it all up. So that's why you also need to be healthy, but also supplement. And usually the obstetrician is going to prescribe some prenatal vitamins that contain folic acid. This is very important for the formation of the baby and for the health of the mommy. All right. And we have the lactating patient. The lactating patient also needs an increased amount of food, increased amount of liquids especially, and they need to keep themselves healthy, because everything they take, they're passing it through to the baby, and this food needs to be good. It needs to be something healthy, because that's what you're giving the baby. All right. That's why there's no alcohol, nothing that is going to pass to the baby. And also there are some medications that are not good for a mommy that is lactating, that is pregnant or lactating, to take, because it's going to cause issues with the baby. So anything that has to do with medications and things like that, it has to be spoken about with the obstetrician before taking it. Okay, so the obstetrician will give the okay or the not okay before. But there are things that are obviously not good, like I said, like alcohol or things like that. Is like no, that's not good for him. All right. Then we have eating disorders. Eating disorders, I thought it was important to mention this, because we have a lot of people that suffer from eating disorders, and it's good to know about them, and it's good to recognize anybody that has this kind of behavior, because it's actually a behavior. If you see in page 1145, there is a table which it says recognizing signs and symptoms of common eating disorders. So I would advise you to look through it. The first one we have, it's anorexia. So anybody that's anorexic, they're actually very thin. They starve themselves. They're never thin enough. They're never skinny enough. Every time they see the scale, they think they're fat. And this is why I put this picture up here, because even though she's like that, this is how she sees herself. Okay, so that is a problem. It can become a big problem if it gets out of control. And people have actually died from it because of lack of nutrition. So yes, it's very important for you to know it, for you to recognize it, and to help somebody that is going through that. Then we have bulimia. The bulimia, it's actually people that binge eat, but then they they feel guilty about it. They're like, oh no, I'm gonna get fat. So after eating everything they see, they go and they vomit all that food. They start taking a huge amount of laxatives all the time, because not only they want to vomit, but they want to also have bowel movements and uncontrollable, just so they can be skinnier and skinnier. And they also have dental problems. The dental problems is because since they are vomiting, they're purging out. Remember, all that has acids, so all those acids affect the teeth, so they're going to have dental problems. And then we have binge eating. Look at that. That's crazy. So binge eating is just eating a lot of food, whatever they find, extremes amount, usually is unhealthy food like you see here, but they don't vomit it, they don't do anything else, they just find that comfort in food, and that's it. So what happens with them? They start gaining weight. If you've seen episodes of I think it's called My 600-Pound Life or something like that, well, if you haven't seen it, watch it. And if you have, well, you know what I'm talking about. These people weigh at least 600 pounds or more. And usually they started feeling depressed. They started feeling like, food is their comfort zone and everything. And they just started eating. And the weight just became uncontrollable. And unfortunately, most of them, they'll find somebody that helps them out. Yeah, that actually supports what they're doing and gives them that food. It's either a loved one, like a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a mother, a spouse, and they keep on feeding them, knowing that really what they're doing is like they're really killing them little by little. So that's not very good. None of that is very good. So the important thing for you to have from all this that we talked about is nutrition and health is very important, and you need to know about it so you can educate others. All right. In the book, in page 1147, you're going to find something that it tells you in the procedure 55.1. It talks about how to read food labels. So you want to also know how to read food labels, not just for you, but for your patients. And just go through that real quick. And also answer the test questions in 1151. Turn them in as soon as you have them. And that's it. Just let me know if you have any other question or any questions about the unit or anything like that, okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.